Francis Bacon. Knowledge is power. Understanding nature by induction. We are living a comfortable and prosperous life due to the development of science and technology. It can be said that Francis Bacon's ideas contributed greatly to the development of science and technology. Number 1, knowledge is power. Dominate nature and enrich our lives. Francis Bacon is a British philosopher about 500 years ago. In this era, people were freed from religion, and there was a growing tendency for humans to perceive nature as it is. He has left behind the famous phrase knowledge is power. It is the idea that we should rule nature by understanding it as it is and use it to enrich our lives. For those of us living in the present age, I think this way of thinking is not strange. We are living a very convenient and comfortable life due to the development of science and technology. Francis Bacon's ideas are thought to have laid the foundation for the development of science and technology. To rule nature, we first need to understand it as it is. However, it is very difficult to understand nature as it is. Francis Bacon thought that prejudice had to be abandoned in order to understand nature as it was. We inevitably look at things with prejudice. Are you prejudiced from the beginning because TV, news, your parents, teachers, or your friends said it? Especially when Francis Bacon lived, Christianity had a wide influence on people's way of thinking. Today we know that things fall from high to low because of gravity, but if we are taught that God gives them that kind of power, how would you look at nature? Number 2, empiricism. Experience is important. Francis Bacon thought that experience should be emphasized in order to understand nature as it is. This is called empiricism. When you think about things with your head, prejudice always appears. For example, suppose you are planning to go on a trip. When you search the internet and guidebooks, it was written that the food was not delicious in the area. Suppose you stop going on a trip after seeing the reviews. Then there is no growth in you. When you actually went there, the food might have been delicious. You don't know until you try everything. Value what you actually feel with your own eyes and ears. Francis Bacon was a philosopher who tried to understand nature as it was by emphasizing experience. Number 3, induction. How to observe nature as it is. Francis Bacon devised a technique called induction to experience nature as it is. This method is also used in modern science. For example, suppose Mr. A died at the age of 90 and Mr. B died at the age of 87. Suppose that the person who lived the longest lived up to 100 years old. By confirming this with Mr. C, Mr. D, Mr. E, using induction here, we conclude that humans can only live up to 100 years old. He tried to come to a general conclusion by actually seeing and experiencing concrete things in this way. How about that? Do you agree with this idea? As many of you may have noticed, induction has major drawbacks. That is, if a person who lived up to 101 years old appears, the conclusion that human beings can only live up to 100 years old will collapse. Despite these drawbacks, the technique of understanding nature from experience is also used in modern science. Scientists are experimenting with observing individual things and trying to draw general conclusions from them. As we live in the present age, we tend to think of science as absolute, but it is a fragile thing that collapses in a blink of an eye when an exception appears. I hope that you, who have learned induction, will understand that science is not absolute and has its drawbacks.